Welcome into episode 509 of the Skate Podcast. I am Brian DeFelice, joined by Bridget Prue and Scott McLaughlin. Bridget is in her Christmas sweater. You have a Hockey East party you're going to soon, so you're kind of testing the waters on what your outfit's going to be.
I got like 3 sweaters that I could. It's between. We're trying them out, so we'll see.
You're not going to pull the old Michael Scott in The Office where you go to the liquor store and say, is 10 bottles of vodka enough to get 10 people hammered or something like that?
Yeah. No, it's not that kind of Christmas party. We go bowling actually, so it's got to be good for bowling too.
What type of bowling? Candlepin?
Yeah, candlepin bowling, which I didn't think I would be good at because I had never done it until last year's party. But I was actually carrying the team, so I was good at it. So hopefully I get recruited again this year.
I don't think I can share too many details, but there was a time when there was an end of season Hockey East party that was that kind of party. I don't think the whatchamacallit, the what statute of limitations, I don't think that's expired yet, so I can't share all the details.
You can share what all happened at that one. Well, back in the day before I worked for them, I guess it was wild, but no, we go to an Italian restaurant, eat dinner. So we get margaritas first though, and then we go bowling.
Margaritas, then Italian?
Yeah, and then bowling.
I will note margaritas plural. So
yeah, exactly. By the way, Scott, phenomenal usage of whatchamacallit. You don't hear that too often. That was well said, well used. Scott, where do you fall on candlepin bowling versus traditional bowling, and gutters versus no gutters? I mean, obviously, at a certain age, you got to go no gutters. Obviously,
yeah, traditional no gutters, I think is my way. I know candlepin is obviously a New England specialty.
Yeah, it's like at a place that has been doing candlepin bowling for like forever. So I forget what it's called, but it's up on the North Shore and it's been open forever. And it's kind of a nostalgic step back in time place.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, growing up in Nashua, there was a candlepin place called Leda Lanes. Unfortunately, I think it's honestly being knocked down like kind of as we speak over the last like month or so. But you walked in there and just reeked of cigarettes. I loved it. It was amazing.
There's still a lot of smoke in there.
Oh man, it's like there was nothing better than being like an 8-year-old kid and just walking in, going bowling, smelling cigarettes, and getting an ice cream or something in the vending machine there. It was a way of life. It is what it is. But I like traditional bowling better. Obviously, the older you get, it's probably go like a maybe, I don't know, Scott, would you say like a 13-pound ball, something like that? One that's heavy enough to knock them down, light enough to kind of get some speed on it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I'm a terrible bowler though. We had I don't know if it was last year, the year before, our Odyssey Boston holiday party was at I think it was at King's, and yeah, I was bad. It's just not good. Like I don't go enough. I feel like when I was younger, I at least went enough that I was like decent, but now it's like a once every 4 years type of thing for me. So
did you have the thread?
Competitive.
There's a lot of rust I had to shake off.
I went bowling on a date this year and I was way too competitive and I won and he was not happy. So I don't know how to turn that off. So
well, that's not cool. Scott, did you have the Fred Flintstone twinkle toes going when as you were bowling?
Yeah.
Hey, listen, for those listening, obviously you didn't expect to go bowling right off the top here of all things. One of the most viral sports clips of all time is that guy bowling, and he
Pete Weber, right?
Pete Weber, yeah, he has that huge strike or whatever. He's like, "Who do you think you are?" I am. He was like the Shooter McGavin of bowling. It was unbelievable.
Legitimately, I think like one of my 10 favorite sports clips ever. Like, I'm watching that every time it pops up on the timeline.
It's the absolute best. If you haven't seen it, YouTube Pete Weber bowling celebration. It's unreal. For those listening and watching, if you have any fun or standout holiday party moments or events that were good or bad, let us know. Let us know. It's that time of year. That said, it's also that time of year to talk Bruins hockey. So let's get into it. They win 5-2 over the St. Louis Blues in St. Louis. Their second 5-2 win over St. Louis in the last week. Bridget and Scott, it's their third consecutive win. And this is my opening shift. It'll be brief, but it's their best mark above 500 this year. 5 games above 500. I think it's worth noting that. You obviously start the year off 3-0. So you're 3 games above 500. Then you lose 6 straight, 7 of 8. Then you go turning around, you win 8 of 9. I think after their win against Montreal, they were, I want to say 12 and 8, 4 games above 500. They've kind of seesawed back and forth with that mark since then. But obviously, as I said last night in St. Louis, they get the 5-2 win, and they start the road trip off strong. And it's their highest mark of the year. It's good for, I want to say, 9th in the East in points percentage, but 4th in the East in points. And in the Atlantic Division, they're top 3. I forget exactly if they're 2nd or 3rd right now, but in any event, good for the Bruins. Good for the Bruins with the injuries that they've been dealing with all year, but in particular, the key injuries to McAvoy and Pastrnak as of late, outside of course, last night. And now I'll throw it over to Scott.
Yeah, my opening shift is that David Pastrnak returned. It was funny. Brian and I recorded Monday morning, and I said, I'd still be maybe a little towards the end. I said, maybe I'd be a little surprised if Pastrnak and or McAvoy go on this road trip, but like not shocked. Well, it turns out they both went on the trip. Pastrnak on Monday, practiced with the team for the first time in a no contact jersey though, so he still hadn't been fully cleared. But he was adamant that he was gonna play at some point on the road trip, whether it was Tuesday or one of the next 2 games. And it turns out it was Tuesday. He was considered a game time decision after morning skate. And it sounds like it really wasn't even a game time decision. Sturm said that he said after the game that basically after Pastrnak underwent his treatment and, testing or whatever after morning skate, they knew then he was going to play. So he gets back in, and Charlie McAvoy seems pretty close to returning as well. He practiced in full on Monday in a regular jersey, so taking some contact for the first time. And he said he also hopes to play at some point on this road trip, although he still needs final clearance from the doctors. But that could be coming either Thursday in Winnipeg or Sunday in Minnesota as well. So, yeah, suddenly the Bruins, really kind of in the blink of an eye, are getting very healthy and getting their big guns back. And, it's funny because it's like at one point I asked Marco Sturm about this on Monday, and he said, it's like, yeah, this is way better than a couple weeks ago. And it was like, we were just trying to find anyone who could play, right? Like that game after Thanksgiving, you have the emergency call up of Merkulov. He has to fly back from Ontario on Thanksgiving because all of a sudden Pastrnak and Zaka are out. And now, he's going to have to figure out, all right, who plays where and who do I keep in the lineup? But the big takeaway here is, you've gotten just in recent weeks, Elias Lindholm back, Casey Middlestad back, Victor Arvidsson back, now Pastrnak, Charlie McAvoy right around the corner. Zaka only missed that 1 game, so they are, not knock on wood, getting close to being healthy for the first time in a long time.
Though poor McAvoy, he won't be all his whole situation won't be resolved for a while. He'll play before he's got. I mean, he can't even eat though for the next few weeks, solid food still. So
he said he's kind of cheating on that. So I think he's started to eat some solid food, even though the doctors didn't recommend it.
Maybe it's partially, there's certain things that are on the borderline that you could get away with, I think. But anyway, yeah, Scott, you mentioned everyone coming back. It ends up with a situation yesterday where it's like, okay, Pasta's back, but Steves is playing well. And the top 2 lines that we've had together while he was gone are playing well. So what do we do? And which line do we touch? Because one of these lines has to get shuffled, or 2 of these lines have to get shuffled. But they decide to keep those 2 lines together that have been the Bruins' top 6 with Pastrnak out. So I'll read off the lines. It was the normal Steves, Lindholm, Geeky line, Middlestat, Zacha, Arvidsson. And then they did put Pasta and Nadinov together, which I thought if they didn't want to touch those lines, they would have to get those guys back together. But who was going to center it? And they decided to go with Fraser Minten. And the results were great. But I'll get more into that later. And then the fourth line was Janot, Kuraly, Kastelik. And that Janot, Minten, Kastelik line, they hadn't touched in, I think, over a month, right? It had been together that was the most consistent line they've had this season, because it was healthy and because Sturm really liked it and didn't want to touch it. But the result of changing it is that Minten scores 2 goals with Pastrnak and Nadinov, and Kastelik scores 2 goals on the fourth line. And it seems like they made the right decision, though the top 6 was quiet. Well, the move that they end up making benefits, I think, Pastrnak, because I think Minten and Nadinov worked really hard to win puck battles, and all 3 of them were going to the net. As soon as one of them took a shot, all 3 of them were crashing. And so these goals were off second chance opportunities, and they were doing that really well. It was a fast line. Is I think a line that has good hockey IQ. I think it worked, which we can talk about, but it creates this situation where we're looking at their lineup, and we me and Scott were in an argument about this before we started recording. Which line is the first line? It's like, is it the line that has Pastrnak on it no matter what, or is the geeky Steves Lindholm line actually the first? Like, which of these lines is actually your first line? Not talking about the way that they wrote them down. Like, if you're really to say, like, what's their better line? And then I guess your answer yesterday was, I think that Minten, Nadinov, Pastrnak line was their best line yesterday. I don't know if you guys agree. And do you keep this lineup together now moving forward with this road trip?
Well, I think you at least keep it together for another game, right? Like, no reason to touch something that worked. Yeah, I mean, I thought all 4 lines were good. Like, the top 2 lines didn't get on the score sheet until Pavel Zacha scores an empty netter, but I mean, they had chances. I thought the second line of Middlestat, Zacha, Arvidsson, I think was clearly their best line early on, and really the only line that was going early on. They had some good offensive zone shifts in a first period where the rest of the Bruins kind of spent the period just making mistakes and throwing pucks away. The top line, or what had been the top line again, like, I don't know. It's going to be tough to talk about this when this is the lineup, but that Steves Lindholm Geeky line, like, they had some chances. Geeky hit a post. Steve's had 7 hits again. Second in the game behind only Tanner Janot, who had 9. So yeah, like, I wouldn't touch that Thursday in Winnipeg, at least. Do I think this is how it's going to stay long term? Probably not. I think at some point you go back to Geeky, Lindholm, Pastrnak, and Steves probably moves down, but you don't have to do that now, not with the way Steves has been playing and not with the way that these line combinations work Tuesday night.
Well, you know what this has done is, it's kind of, now that you have Kuraly centering Kastelik and Janot on your fourth line, it kind of opens up just that simple switch of Steves and Pastrnak, to your point, Scott, later on. Like, now you can have a third line of Minten, Nadinov, and Steves if you want to roll that out there at some point. I think at the end of the day, it's a long season, and there's going to be different moments for different reasons where you got to change things up and you don't want to mess with certain things. So right now, the lines that they did last night and should stick with for the following game, they seem appropriate right now, and for a few reasons. And I'll list them just quickly. I think Sturm did a good job of pressing some of the right buttons. For example, the top line, well, you're right, Scott. It's like, the Geeky, Lindholm, and Steves line, right? They have deserved the opportunity to stay playing together, right? They're playing well. They're playing off of each other. You don't want to ruin that just because Pastrnak is coming back into the lineup. Not that David would make that line worse. Obviously, he wouldn't. He he's a, what's the phrase? Tides that rise all ships, whatever. Like that's who he is. But he's also coming back from injury, right? So he has to get back up to speed. And so for that reason, I liked that they kept Geekie, Steves, and Lindholm together, give them another game to keep their good times rolling for them. But it allows Pastrnak to kind of ease back into the lineup in a third line role. I'm curious what the 5-on-5 minutes were split between those top three lines, but him with Hussein and Minten, I just felt like was nice because it eased Pastrnak back in with some puck hunters, Bridget, to your point.
Yeah.
And then for Fraser Minten, I feel like with Jeannot and Kastelik, they have their moments where they produce, but I don't think Jeannot and Kastelik necessarily need to be with Minten to play their game. And I don't think that they hurt Minten's game, but offensively, I think Fraser Minten could benefit from being around some more offensive-minded players.
Mhm.
So you can put Jeannot and Kastelik down with Corrali. They'll stay doing what they do. And then you get Husnadinov going, because I feel like they've lost him to the shuffle a little bit as of late. Not that he's this player you have to prioritize, but he did play well in a top 6 role around offensive-minded players. And then he kind of went down to the fourth line with Easymont and Corrali. I felt like kind of lost him. So the buttons that Sturm pressed last night for different reasons, I felt like was appropriate for just about every player that it affected. And then the second line stayed the same because there was really no reason to, I guess, alter that.
Yeah. Well, so when I went on Nesson's Hockey Hub this week and was talking to them about when Pastrnak, because we were talking like, oh, it looks like Pasternak's coming back. What do they do? And I said they should put him back with Husnadinov because that's who he was playing with before he got hurt. And it looked good, right? Like, I know it kind of feels like a while now ago, even though it really wasn't. But I thought that was a good combination. And it allows you to just stick a center in between them, or even use Husnadinov as a center and just find a third person for that combo and run with it. And you could keep those two lines together if you just found that third person. And I think Minten worked well. Obviously, the results would say so as that third person. And I also don't think they should rush to putting Pastrnak back with Geekie and Lindholm, because I think the dynamics of these lines, they have a puck hunter on it, which means somebody's forechecking. Like, so I would say Steve's for the Geekie line is that puck hunter. He's forechecking. He's popping a puck back out in front. He's forcing a turnover. And pucks end up funneling to the net because of it. And then that way Geekie can just kind of set up and be the goal scorer on that line. Mm-hmm. When you have Husnadinov with Pastrnak, he's doing that for that line. But if you put Pasta back on with Lindholm and Geekie, there's really no one there that's doing that role the way that the other two can, right? Like, they can all go forecheck and they can all battle for pucks, but I think you're freeing up Pastrnak and you're freeing up Geekie by not putting extra pressure on them to have to do that when they can just kind of be the goal scorer there. And I don't know, I think Husnadinov and Pastrnak think similarly and work well together. And I like it. I'm not in a rush to move Pastrnak back with Lindholm and Geekie. And by the way, when he got hurt, that's not what the line was anyway. So, yeah, I think him and Husnadinov, I'd keep it together for now.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, like after a win where all 4 lines looked pretty good, absolutely no reason to touch it. Me saying that was more just like, I think that's eventually going to happen just on its own. Like, Steve slows down at some point, or, Husnadinov, Minten, Pastrnak has an off game or two. Like, I think it will happen naturally, but I'm not rushing it at all. Like, I'm not going out of my way to make it happen.
Yeah. Can I ask you both a question about the third player on that line, Fraser Minten? Like, what do you think his fit is there? Because we talked about Husnadinov and Pastrnak already kind of having a little chemistry they built earlier in the season, but there's certainly a different dynamic that Minten brings. I mean, he's a good two-way player, right? Like, he can play a 200-foot game. He can be the defensive guy on that line. I feel like he kind of balances out those two.
He does. I mean, and I would say, and Scott would echo this, in his small sample size with Pastrnak and Husnudinov, they've been an effective line. They've produced. I mean, Scott mentioned it last night online, but it's obviously true. They were the line that tied the game against the Islanders earlier in the season when they needed a goal. So it's a big challenge it's a big ask for Fraser Minten and Husnudinov to play alongside one of the best forwards in the game. Not because David's not welcoming, not because he's not going to help them as much as he can, and certainly not because his talent won't help them. Of course, all of those things are true. I just think there's a element of probably maybe nerves or pressure of being with one of the best players in the world that you have to kind of get over, and maybe some imposter syndrome, right? And you might want to defer to him and all that stuff, but Pastrnak would be the first one to tell them, play your game, and I'll adapt to you. And as far as Minten goes, he has a very, very mature style of play for his age. Talk about a player that plays beyond their years. I mean, what is he, 21 years old, 22 years old maybe? I know he's the same age as Patra, so whatever that is. And just his frame, the confidence he plays with, he's physical on the walls, he's strong.
Minten's 21. He doesn't turn 22 until the summer.
Yeah, just a very mature game.
He's younger than Patra because Patra turns 22 in March.
Yeah, I mean, I think they were the same draft, right? So they're in the same draft year. But just a very mature game that Minten plays, very encouraging for Bruins and Bruins fans to see him. So yeah, it's a challenge for him and Husnudinov, but they've risen to it so far, no doubt.
Yeah, and it puts Minten it puts him in a different role, right? Like it's one thing when you're with Jeannot and Kastelik, and that line has a clear identity of being this physical forechecking line, going to be defensively responsible, and was contributing offensively, not a ton, but like they're chipping in every couple games. Now, when you're on the line with Pastrnak, that any line with Pastrnak on it is expected to contribute just about every night. So that puts you in a little bit of different position. Like you got to be a little crisper offensively, right? There's less kind of when it's Jeannot, Minten, Kastelik. Okay, you can have a good offensive zone shift. You get a shot, you don't bury it. And it's like, okay, but hey, you know what? They generate some momentum for you. Well, suddenly when you're with Pastrnak, you're going to be expected to bury more chances and turn more shots into goals. So it does change it a little. And Brian, you're right to highlight not wanting to defer, because that's something that even Husnudinov would kind of slip into at times when he was centering Geeky and Pastrnak, which again is very understandable when you're looking to your two wings and you're seeing two of the best goal scorers in the game. I get why it happens, but there were times when it's like, oh, the right play there was for Husnudinov to shoot. So now it's two younger guys with Pastrnak who I think will both need to fight that mindset at times of get the puck and where's Pasta? And it's like the first read should have been, hey, I have a good chance here myself. There's a switch that has to kind of go off for these guys. And can and will, as long as they're mindful of it and willing to shoot. And you're right. I do think Pastrnak, now as a leader, I think it's clear that like he will tell those guys that, and he will encourage them to shoot. And I think that's been an underrated part of Morgan Geeky's success over the last calendar year is how much David Pastrnak has encouraged him to shoot. Because when those two first got put together, Geeky would do that sometimes, defer to Pastrnak. And it took Geeky eventually realizing like, oh, you know what? It works just as well for us if I finish the chance and Pasta gets the assist. And once he got there and once he believed that, you saw him take off. Now, I'm not saying Minten and Husnudinov can be the next Geeky and score 50 goals, but like if they can get to a point where they understand and believe that the right players for them to shoot and not to just defer to Pastrnak, that line will be better for it.
Well, I don't know if I saw them really deferring to him yesterday, though. Like on those.
No, I'm saying
it creeps in. Yeah, I get what you're saying. But
I'm not saying it's going to be like it happened 5 times Tuesday. I'm saying if they're together for 10 games, like it's going to inevitably happen.
Yeah, I get that. But what's encouraging is that in the very first game, it didn't seem to happen, right? Like that's encouraging that they clearly were thinking shoot. Like Minten's 2 goals. The second one, he just like whips as he's falling down, which was it was kind of a crazy shot to even take. But the first one, I guess, is more. They all were involved in that. Like Pastrnak took the original shot, then Huznadinov poked it underneath the goalie, and then Minten scored it. Like it was all 3 of them fighting as hard as they could to go to the net, and then like. Obviously, Minten didn't defer on his second goal because he just decided to shoot it, and it was a kind of awkward falling down shot, but like he saw his chance and he took it, and I just think it's encouraging that all that stuff could happen, but it didn't seem to in the first time that the combo was there.
Yeah, I mean that first goal, if I remember correctly, I think Minten may have won a wall battle. Actually, it may have been Aspero or somebody won a wall battle, but Minten got the puck on the left wall, and his first shot got blocked, and he followed up into the corner, won a battle, somehow got it towards the net, and then Pastrnak kept the play alive. Huznadinov does his water bug thing, and then Minten's on the other side and puts it home. That's a big goal because at the time it kind of felt like it may have been one of those games where the Bruins have some sloppy moments, but for the most part outplay St. Louis, but maybe just don't find a way to score. And so in a game where you have Morgan Geeky's on pace for around 60 goals this year. Whether he does that or not, don't know. Let's call him a 50-goal scorer at least this year, right? I think that's fair to say. And then Pastrnak, we know, is a 60-goal scorer in his career. So the fact that you have those 2 players on your roster last night,
just like. How crazy is it that like this is how we're talking about Morgan Geek? It's like I don't know if he's gonna get 60, but he'll probably at least get 50.
I know, it's crazy. This is what he's doing. It's you can't say otherwise. When someone's on pace for 60 and you dock off 10 just to be safe, that's good. That's all on the player. But when you have those 2 players that don't score last night, and Alex Rocket Richard Steves doesn't score, right? And then you have 2 goals from Minten, 2 goals from Castle. Like the fact that you're having secondary scoring on a night where I'm, tongue in cheek about Steves, but your top guys didn't produce. I mean, goals. I mean, Pastrnak comes back into the lineup and he played well for his first game back, but he wasn't like dominant for the obvious reasons. He's getting back into it, and he still had 3 assists. That's the sign of a superstar.
And he should have had a goal, but he hit the post on an empty net.
I mean, that's the sign of a superstar when you've been out for 6 games, whatever it was, and you come back to the lineup and you're just getting the rust off again, getting your timing back, and you get 3 assists. That's incredible. So
yeah, he also Messon showed a graphic at one point. I don't know if he finished the game like this, but I think this was in towards the end of the second period. Or maybe the beginning of the second period. They showed the stat. It was he had skated distance wise more than anyone else had.
Really,
in the game at that point,
getting his cardio back.
Yeah,
but
so
he can hold that title until McAvoy's back, because McAvoy always leads the team in that stat when he plays.
And by the way, Pasta did play about 15 and a half minutes, which was up there in terms of
the ice time was very evenly split throughout the whole lineup in this game.
Yeah, it was. And Minten Minten had slightly more than Pasta, but like Minten was up there in his minutes too, just by comparison. But yeah, like Pastrnak didn't, like, it was a little bit less time than normal, but still, he kind of looked back. He looked for the most part back to normal, which is good. And he missed 5 games.
I want to highlight the other new line combination, which was the 4th line, because they scored twice as well. Castle getting both goals, although I'm still not fully convinced that that first goal actually hit him. Like, Corrali obviously deflected it, and then I guess they're saying it grazed off Kastelik on its way in for a double deflection. But regardless, a really good game for that line. And Marco Sturm went out of his way after the game to highlight Jeannot and Kastelik not like just handling the line change like professionals, where, you know, that they could look at that and be like, we've been on the third line and we're playing well, and now we get moved down to the fourth line. And it's like, that's just not how they thought of it. Like, they were just like, whatever, we're just going to go out and play. Kastelik talked about after the game. He was like, it doesn't matter who we play with right now. He said it's a blast. Like, it's a lot of fun just playing right now, period. I think that was even evident, like, at Monday's practice, is that the vibes are just really high around this team right now, and they are having a lot of fun every day that they get to the rink. But they go out and, like, it's like they just still play their game. Doesn't really matter if the center was Minten or Corrali. I thought that this brought out maybe Corrali's best game of the season, having those two on his wings. I did, Brian, kind of to your point about, like, Khusnutdinov getting lost in the shuffle. It felt like that fourth line didn't really have that much of an identity recently. Like, not that they were playing poorly, but it was like there are some games that kind of just felt like they were there. Last night, like, that was a line that had an identity and went out and played really well, got rewarded with some goals, and got rewarded with ice time. Corrali ends up with 16 minutes. Jeannot 15, Kastelik just under 15 for a fourth line. Like, that's Sturm's way of saying, like, if you play like this, I'm not going to treat you like a fourth line. You're not going to play 10 minutes. You're going to, like, you'll get your ice time.
Sean Corrali had more minutes than any other forward last night, if that just tells you.
Well, and Minten or Kastelik and Jeannot playing with Minten, it's, yeah, you like to think that Minten's ceiling in the NHL is more than a fourth line center. And I know that they were playing third line minutes, but I say that because they were kind of playing to the identity of, like, a really good fourth line. Like, they weren't producing a ton of offense. They were playing awesome. I think they might be the most universally loved line in Boston prior to them being split up last night. Everybody loves them for what they do, but they're not scoring like a third line. But because we all know the score of this team this year, like, no one's really harping on their third line production or lack thereof, because it's the nature of the Bruins roster this year. It's kind of a by committee type situation. So them being the quote unquote fourth line last night, it's really, their job stays the same. It's what they've always done. It just allowed, yeah, to your point, Scott, it allows Corrali to get some of that rub from those guys. And Corrali with Kastelik and Jeannot doesn't have to be the big body forechecker on his line like he is with Eyssimont or Khusnutdinov. And then you do free up Khusnutdinov and Minten with a little bit more offensive, skill around them. And Bridget, last episode there was a listener who on YouTube gave us some lines that they would like to see in the springtime, and based off us prompting the episode prior. And it was upon signing James Higgins after the BC season, if they did that, right? Their lines were Geeky, Lindholm, Pastrnak. Second line stays the same of Zacha, Middlestat, Arvidsson. And then the fourth line they had as Minten, Kastelik, and Jeannot, which is putting that line down, which is what we saw last night, obviously outside of Minten. And then the third line was Khusnutdinov, Steves, and James Higgins centering them. So take Higgins out of the situation, put Minten between Khusnutdinov and Pastrnak, right, which is what it is right now. If they end up switching Pastrnak and Steves, that's kind of what those lines would be, Scott, just Minten instead of Higgins, and then Corrali instead of Minten. So it's actually kind of funny that I know that if you're listening on a podcast, I'd probably just put your brain in a pretzel. I'm sorry for that, but
it's just like,
if you're following along, if you're following along, you listened yesterday or last episode, like, you'll know what I'm saying. It's funny that the lines that person gave is pretty similar to what the Bruins would look like if they just switch Pastrnak and Steves, which, to Scott's point, could be something that they do at some point in the short future. So I guess my overall point is they're still in good shape. Like right now, I love the fact that you have two elite goal scorers in Pastrnak and Geeky separated, because you just create that much more depth. And Bridget has mentioned the term puck hunters. Like they both have puck hunters on their line in Steves and Hustendinov respectively. And then, oh, by the way, Elias Lindholm and Fraser Minten, they're good at, you know, angling people off and board battles as well. So for right now, there's no need to change anything. I like the dynamic. But if they do need to switch people around, it's just a simple Steve's Pastrnak switch. And I think you still have your fourth line of Kaslik, Chanot, and Corrali. You have a third line that can actually provide some more offense than what the previous third line was, Minten, Hustendinov, and Steves. And then the top six is what we've seen. So they have options, which is something that we didn't think that they had heading into the year, really.
Yeah, and one last thought for me on that fourth line, wouldn't want to be on the ice with them. That is that is a big, aggressive fourth line. Like Tanner Jeannot, Mark Kastelik, pick your poison. Who you want to go against on that line, and then Corrali has some grit to him as well. He's definitely got a little bit of that fight in him too. So I think that's just a line that is mature, tough, a little bit crazy in a good way. And it's not an easy line to play against. And that's exactly, if you think about the best Bruins teams in the past, like that's kind of like the dynamic of those fourth lines is the line you definitely don't want to be out there against, because they have that identity of being extremely tough and hard to play against. So and then it also gives you, this was part of Scott and I's conversation before the podcast too. Do you just have a top 9, right? Is there not like a list of lines? It's just the top 9, which in the off season we thought they maybe didn't even have a top 6. So to have a top 9 and then the fourth line just scored 2 goals, like that's great. That's great news.
Yeah, like that is kind of how I view it. Is like this is just a top 9. Like you just have your top 3 lines. They can list however they want. Like I get why they listed it the way they did, because the Lindholm line was already the first line. Zacha line was the second line. Minten was the third line center. So they basically just kept the centers the same in terms of how the Bruins officially listed it on their depth chart. But yeah, I mean, realistically, it feels like any line Pasternak's on should be the first line. Any line Geeky's on at this point has to be a top 2 line. So I guess maybe, Middlestad, Zacha, Arvidsson is your your quote unquote third line now. And it's like, they've been good as a second line. So if that's your third line, awesome. Last 2 things on Corrali. I was gonna say, yeah, he's averaging like 20 hits a night. 17 of them are in warm-ups on all his teammates, and then like two or 3 in the game.
What a bruiser.
I've been meaning to mention this for a while, but like the Bruins actually tweeted out the video last night. So I think, anyone who maybe who isn't going to games or like watching warm-ups, Corrali, like Bruins will be like lined up in the corner, for the drill with like you just go one after the other, curl out to the blue line, come in and shoot. And he just goes through the line and hits everyone who's lined up. Obviously not hard, but just to like create some energy. And then my one last thing on Pastrnak here. I liked his quote after the game. He was asked about playing with Minten and Hustendinov, and he said, just 3 young kids playing together. It was fun.
Exactly.
I mean, he's young at heart. You can tell that. Like he's
what is he, 29?
Yeah, he's 29.
29. There's a lot of differences between last year's Bruins team and this year's Bruins team, but chief among them is there's definitely a level of connectivity and chemistry with this group. Like it's not that last year's team didn't get along. Like it's I'm not saying that, but certainly in a way where it has a positive on ice effect. You see it like these, like, yeah, they have an identity. simply put, last year they did not have an identity. And as we talked about briefly last episode, Scott, that was a good thing because it bit long term because it led to the organization having to take some steps back to go forward. So, but yeah, it's good. It's good to see.
And you know who doesn't have an identity right now is the St. Louis Blues. And gee, I wonder if there's any connection between that team and last year's Bruins team.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those situations where, like, without being there and in the room, it's like it's tough to have a concrete comment, but it's you know, it's there. I mean, what you're alluding to is there, Scott.
I mean, because the Bruins, and we've touched on it, but the Bruins got off to an unbelievably sloppy start in this game. Like multiple back passes to no one, both 5-on-5 and on the power play. Just not connecting, guys not on the same page. And the Blues just like couldn't take advantage. Like there just didn't seem to be a killer instinct there. You know, they take a 1-0 lead, but probably should have been 2 or 3-0. And I know the Blues had 2 wins in between these 2 losses to the Bruins, but they've looked bad in these 2 games against the Bruins. I mean, that second period was completely lopsided Tuesday night. Like the Bruins were just all over them. It was like all they needed was, okay, they didn't have it in the first period. They were sloppy. They just need to survive to the intermission. And then they took the game over in the second. And I know the Blues tied it in the third, and then the Bruins pulled away again. But yeah, that St. Louis team just like they just lose a lot of battles, and there didn't seem to be any sort of.
They have size.
Yeah.
Well, they got some big boys over there: Parayko, Shen, Broberg, Sundqvist, Bukestad. The list goes on. They might be the Bruins. I think are the biggest team in the NHL potentially. I thought I heard that before the season.
I know Vegas is up there.
I would be willing to bet St. Louis is up there too.
There's statistically the worst second period team in the league throughout the season. So it wasn't necessarily a surprise that there was a change in momentum in the second period. The Bruins started to get to their game at the end of the first period anyway, but the shots were 13-3 in the second period for the Bruins. And at the time of the Bruins' first goal, shots were 20-12 or something like that. It was, let me see, I wrote it down. Yeah. By the time of Minten's game tying goal to make it 1-1, shots were 20-12 Boston. So they had already really gotten going at that point. And it was one of those things where it's like, once one fell, you kind of knew more were coming. And that's what happened.
Yeah. I mean, I think the Bruins led them in shots after the first. And I remember thinking to myself, to be honest, I didn't think the Bruins played very well in the first period at all. And I looked at the shot clock.
11-10. It was close,
yeah, but there was a point earlier in the first where it was like the shots were like 10-3 Bruins or 10, and they weren't playing well. And so to Scott's point about St. Louis not capitalizing, I thought to myself, well, that was a pretty rough period of hockey for the Bruins, and St. Louis just for a Bruins team that didn't play well to not capitalize on that, I think spoke volumes about how St. Louis wasn't playing well either. But Scott, did you have any? Were you looking something up? Did you want to mention something before I go to my next point?
No, you can go.
Okay. I thought he was looking up the size thing.
I know. Sometimes I read his body language. It looks like he's looking something up.
Yeah, no, there's just like there's a bunch of teams all lumped together. Like there really wasn't between like 1 and 20. There's actually barely any difference in terms of like average height or average weight.
Yeah, they're all pro athletes.
When you have Nikita Zadorov, you just are like, yeah, we're bigger, you know?
Yeah. I just St. Louis they have some noticeably bigger guys, so I just thought they may be up there. But okay, it wasn't all good though last night, right? So I want to bring up Hampus Lindholm, and I want to get your guys' opinion on him and what's going on with him, because to me, and I haven't checked his advanced analytics. Maybe he's better than what the eye test is showing me. You know, we've talked about him briefly in recent episodes saying, you know, he hasn't been bad. He has been great. Like Zadorov's been the leader back there without McAvoy, all these things. We obviously know how important he is to the team. We saw what their record was without him. But my 2 cents, and I'd like to hear your guys' opinion, and for those listening, give us your comments too. He just seems to me like a player who's fighting it right now. I don't know if he's hurt, but he's battling confidence. I think he seems to be very unsure of what his next decision with the puck is. It's leading to hesitations, and at the NHL level, as Hampus knows better than anybody because he's been in the league for over a decade, that half second makes a difference. So that's what I'm seeing. I don't know if he's hurt, but to me, he's clearly battling some indecision, which I think oftentimes stems from between the ears more so than physical. I don't think St. Louis is doing anything to pressure him crazy. I don't think he physically looks like he's ailing. I just think between the ears, he's a little bit slow right now.
Yeah, that there were a couple plays Tuesday where, one's on the power play, just drop pass to no one, like didn't even look behind him to see where Zacha was, and basically just dumped it down to the corner. Bruins had to regroup all over again. Yeah, you're right. A couple plays where he just held on to it, be too long, or there was one where it was in the first period, and I forget. It might have been Geeky. He had a chance to spring on a breakaway and just like wasn't decisive enough. It was like a loose puck in the slot in the D zone, and he just like wasn't decisive enough pouncing on it. And the Blues actually ended up just getting possession, and it could have been a breakaway the other way. Takes a then actually it was that same shift. Then he has a turnover in the offensive zone and takes a penalty as it turns back up ice. So, yeah, that there's been some rough plays recently. I think Peak has also been struggling a little bit, and so that the combination of the two of them, it's becomes like a chicken or the egg thing. It's like who's struggling first? Well, the net product is both are struggling a little bit, and that pairing hasn't really been maybe what it was earlier in the season. They're also, and this is something I've brought up many times with Hampus Lindholm, Marco Sturm is also using that as his D zone shutdown pairing. They are getting buried with defensive zone starts. Hampus Lindholm can do that when he's on his game. He can be a very good defensive defenseman. I still think it's not the ideal way to use him. Like I think you get the best from Hampus Lindholm when you put him in some offensive situations and at least kind of balance out his usage. And it hasn't been balanced out for a while now. It's been very D zone heavy. So I think all of that together, where it's like both Lindholm and Peak are probably a little off their game, and they're getting the toughest assignments in the D zone, and it's all just kind of adding up a bit. Now, I will say, for as rough as last night was looking, that the final numbers last night like actually ended up shockingly good. Hampus Lindholm, when he was on the ice, the Bruins out attempted the Blues 26-12. Shots on goal were 9-3. And goals were 2-1. They ended up in plus territory. So,
yep.
It didn't feel like that kind of game, but it did eventually end up there.
He's never going to be a bad analytical player, right? So,
well, he has been for a little bit this season.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, like that St. Louis goal. Sorry, Bridget, go ahead. You haven't had a chance.
I was just going to say, I don't think it's a coincidence that when he like this season he's looked a little bit down when it's Lindholm Peak. That's just what it seems like to me. It's just like that combination is not as smooth as Lindholm McAvoy. But when McAvoy comes back, put him back with Zadorov because that was a great pair. So that's like what we're looking at. But I do think that there's that combination. It has struggled a bit.
Well, and that's an interesting prompt you bring up, Bridget, and I want to get to that in a second. And yes, you guys are right. Like I don't think Peak is somebody who will help Lindholm thrive, right? And that first goal last night, for example, I mean, I'm watching it and I'm watching both players' reactions after the goal, and both players' body language obviously peaks because he's the one who coughed the puck up. But even Lindholm's both reacted like they were at fault. So I'm wondering if like Lindholm was screaming for the puck when I don't know what happened there. But there's also been plays where Peak's nowhere around. and Lindholm, Peak has nothing to do with the play, and Lindholm is coughing up pucks and not moving pucks, or there's a loose puck and it's between him and the Bruins forward, and there's hesitation, and it's everything. He just seems off to me, and so anyway, but Bridget, to your point, like, yeah, like McAvoy, Zadorov, like was fantastic, and when they're both in the lineup and Zadorov hasn't missed a game, they've been your top 2 defensemen this year. So putting them back together, to me, I think makes a ton of sense. Or again, because it's a game of psychology and trying to get the best out of players in certain parts of the season, does putting Lindholm with McAvoy help Lindholm's game a little bit right now because he needs it more, where Zadorov and Aspero kind of have a decent thing going. But I'm undecided. Like, I'm curious what you guys think the D pairs should be when McAvoy comes back, because Victor Soderstrom has played well. He deserves a tip of the cap. He was on, I want to say it was the Sean Corrali, or sorry, Mark Haslick first goal. He had a well-placed dump in for the forwards to go after it. He's also just that, obviously, Jeannot, Kaslik gets it to Jeannot. Jeannot gets it back to Soderstrom at the point. Shot on goal, 2-1, or whatever the score was. But he's also looked good in this time. So tip of the cap to him. I bring up this question because McAvoy is on the trip, like we've talked about earlier in the episode. Scott brought that up, and Bridget, you talk about how it seems like it could be a little too soon for McAvoy based on his dietary restraints. I'm kind of with you. I'm kind of surprised that he might be playing on this trip. It does seem a little soon to me for those intangible reasons, but nonetheless, if he's back, how would you guys configure, if you have your coaching caps on, how would you configure the D pairs? Would you try to get Lindholm going with McAvoy, or go right back to Zadorov, McAvoy, and Hampus, you're a big boy, figure it out?
I want Zadorov, McAvoy.
So that would have been my thought, but it's sort of everything we just laid out has me at least considering the alternative, which is like in the same vein of Sturm why didn't Pastrnak go right back to being on a line with Geeky? Well, because Alex Steves was playing well there and that line was working. Zadorov Aspero is working. That's been a good pair. And Lindholm Peak is not really working right now. So,
and then you go Laura.
I would strongly consider Lindholm McAvoy. And it feels like there's been a bunch of situations in recent years where we've been like, maybe this is when you finally give Lindholm McAvoy a run together, because it really hasn't happened in a long time. Like when those two end up together, it's for very short bursts. So I don't know. Maybe I'm going to fall into the trap again here and say, like, maybe this is a time where it might actually make sense to put them together and give them some games together. And then, you can figure out, I guess Lori Peak would be a third pair, which I didn't love last year. I think it's been a little better this year when they've been together. So I might be leaning towards that right now. Just one last note on Lindholm Peak, because I wanted to look it up. So they've been the Bruins' most used D pair this season. They've played nearly 100 minutes more together than any other pairing. Mm-hmm. And the Bruins have been outscored 12-6 with them on the ice at 5-5 at 5-on-5. Expected goals 41%. Like it's a pretty big sample at this point of that pairing not really producing very good results.
I will defend my position on this, in that obviously we were talking about how they're such an amazing pair right before he went down, and how they really were kind of dragging the entire defense like to a different energy level, and like Zadorov's having a great year too. And I think to talk about McAvoy coming back, he's going to wear the shield, and you have Nikita Zadorov out there with him. I don't know if maybe people take fewer liberties on trying to go, maybe hit McAvoy up high. Like, obviously he's not fully healed. So I don't know. Does Zadorov provide a little bit of extra cover for somebody who's trying to get fully healthy because he's a big guy and you do not want to, hit McAvoy when he's out there because he'll come after you. It just feels like there's a dynamic there that could be beneficial for McAvoy in a physicality standpoint, because if he gets hit in the face, it's not gonna be great. Even if he takes a hit, like, just a solid clean hit and everything kind of rattles around, like it's going to be tough for him in these first few games back after losing weight, after having surgery on his jaw. Like, I just feel like there's a benefit to having Zadorov out there with him for those reasons too.
Well, let me tell you something. If I was a jury right now, I'd have no idea which way to go, because you two both just presented some astounding arguments. Honestly, both have great points. Bridget, I think that protecting McAvoy and the fact that the two are playing excellent hockey together before McAvoy's injury are two very strong reasons to go back to them. For the reasons that Scott laid out, I also see that side, and the coaching cap in me feels like it's more important to find a way for Hampus Lindholm to get going in a time where Nikita Zadorov is going with Aspero. Like, they could be, like, because they're playing so well together and could be that D zone assignment pairing. Like, I don't have to worry about Zadorov. He's been great wherever he's been this year. It has been the case for Lindholm. So for me, it comes down to, like, all right, what matters more to me? Zadorov being muscle out there for McAvoy, which I just don't think is maybe as frequent as needing Lindholm's game to improve. So I see both sides. I'm curious what listeners think. You would also. Where's my ladle? What's the judge's thing called that they
gavel?
Order.
Gavel.
Gavel.
Yeah, I need my gavel. Objection not granted. I also am curious what Lohrei and Peak would look together. I don't know my confidence level in them either, so that could be a reason to I don't know. I guess I'm undecided, but Bridget, yes, what's your rebuttal?
That what if Lindholm's hesitation, if he's got a little hesitation in his game, then transfers over to Charlie McAvoy, who, like, I want him with the most confident partner right now. Like, I want him with, like, Zadorov is extremely confident.
You're saying what happens to McAvoy's game coming back if Lindholm's still struggling?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, so Bridget, let me just add. So what would you leave Lindholm and Peak together and just let them work through it, or do you have something else you'd want to try?
I'm just saying, we're getting McAvoy back for the first time. Like, and it's more important for him to be in a good position and then figure that out in time, I guess. Like, see how McAvoy looks first. Set him up for success when he returns. And then if it seems like that's going to be fine and the timing's all right to move them around, go off of that. That's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, I think his return would give Sturm a good reason to try something else now. You know what I mean? Like, it's very easy for Sturm to explain that to everyone involved as, hey, I like Zadorov Aspero together, and we're gonna try Hampus and Charlie. Right? Like, that's an easy pitch to make. You don't really hurt Andrew Peak's feelings. Like, everyone comes out of that, I think feeling like understanding why Sturm would do that. So I don't know. Like, I certainly see your side though, because you're right. Zadorov McAvoy was very good together. I guess I just feel like now would be a good time to split up Lindholm and Peak, and McAvoy's return gives you a really convenient excuse for doing it. One last thing on McAvoy for me, I will note that while he said he lost 20 pounds after the injury, he is not still 20 pounds lighter. He said on Monday that he's gained more than half of that back already.
Yeah.
So I think he was around 215 before the injury. So my guess is he's probably like 206, 207. So it's not like he's not that far off his normal playing weight already.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll see what happens. Again,
we'll find out Thursday, right? We'll find out who's thinking the same way that Marco Sturm is. We're not sure.
Leave your comments on who you guys agree with and what
Team
your pairs would be. I think Team Bridget would be, just for clarification, I think Team Bridget would essentially be the D pairs we saw in Montreal, which would have been McAvoy, Zadorov, Lindholm, Peak, Aspro, Lohrei. And then I think in Scott's world, and again, I'm just going to play both sides here. I think Scott's world would be Lindholm, McAvoy, Zadorov, Aspro, Lohrei, Peak. So,
yeah. One last thing before we log off that I have to plug. This week on weei.com, we've been dropping a 25 years, 25 moments series. So just the good or bad, the most memorable, significant moments for each team since 2000. So Monday we drop Patriots, Tuesday Celtics, Wednesday Red Sox, and Thursday morning my Bruins list is dropping. So I'm sure we can react to that on Friday's episode. But just want to give people a heads up, have them keep an eye out for that.
Definitely. Also, just 30 seconds or less, Swayman played great too. I feel bad sometimes we gloss over the goaltending, because when goaltending sucks, it's a story, and when they're playing well, we don't even. So I feel bad about that dynamic. It's the nature of the beast that they play that position. But he played well when he needed to last night. There were some point blank opportunities when Boston had some letdowns or some breakdowns.
And just to, I guess, I'll let people know, if you want to look, Swayman was on WEI today. So if you do want to listen to what he said, he talked a little bit about leadership. He talked about Pastrnak. He talked about McAvoy. That is, you can find that on YouTube. I'm sure somebody tweeted it out as well. I can retweet it.
Odyssey app, the greatest app in the world.
Oh,
right
God.
right there on demand.
Really?
WEI.com.
Right next to 99 potato skins, next to the best app in the world. But we'll leave that alone for now. Great meal, great deal. Kids eat free.
That's an app? Okay. Different kind of app, Brian. Are you just hungry?
The appetizer sampler.
Okay. All right. Well, my favorite app is Crab Ragoon, so just putting that out there. But
I'm more of a mozzarella stick guy.
Oh, well, that's definitely up there.
Crab Ragoon's phenomenal. I'm not sure if that's like an appetizer.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's just a meal for me. Like, I'll just eat a whole box of Crab Rangoon.
That's an app. Beef teriyaki, also great app.
I feel like all
that's also
Chinese...
a meal.
No, it's not. That's what I eat before I eat.
I think all Chinese restaurants, that's the thing.
What do you eat as your meal?
Their entire menu is appetizers. You just go down, I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll do this. But they're all to the appetizer menu.
My meal is normally it's called Hawaiian cow. It's like, you might hate this idea, but it's beef with vegetables and pineapple.
I mean, that sounds good. That sounds
delicious. It is good. And then I have a lot of leftovers, if you can imagine.
By the way, just quick shout out, China Rainbow. This institution in Watertown has been open for about 75 years. They're closing their doors on December 20th. So if anybody's ever been to the China Rainbow in Watertown, it's a Chinese restaurant if you haven't, piece that together. It is fantastic. They're closing. So if you know it, last chance to go, I think it's probably December 20th, or maybe it's December 19th. Another one bites the dust. It's a Polynesian style. You know how there's traditional Chinese, and you have Polynesian Chinese, like the Kowloon. Those ones are kind of few and far between. So anytime one of those,
that's what I have in my town. That's the one that I go to, is Polynesian. Yep.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of Cantonese stuff because the owners are from Hong Kong. So.
Well, that was a sad note to end on. Anyway,
we started with bowling. We ended on Chinese food. All right. I think we're good.
Send us your favorite Chinese food places.
Yeah. You guys are good?
Is Crab Ragoon an appetizer?
Thank you all very much for listening, and we'll talk to you on Friday. Hey guys, thanks for watching the Skate Podcast. If you want to see more of our videos, visit our playlist.
Not in front of a screen? You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Don't forget to follow us on social media. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment.